Thank you, Aaron. To those of you who don't know, I'm Christopher Pine, and I'm the chairman of or the co-chair of the Australia UAE Business Council. The other co-chair is Badr Al-Olama, who's now heading up the development department for the Department of Economic Development for Abu Dhabi and was previously at Mubadala. And Aaron Waters-Marsh, who is the executive director of the Australia UAE Business Council, who's in Sydney. And we're very lucky to have Sabrin Rahman from the COP28 UAE organising office committee. She can tell us exactly what it's called, but Sabrin Rahman is the director of partnerships for COP28 UAE. She's going to talk to us, and we're very grateful for your attendance, Sabrin, about COP28 and how it's all going to work and the opportunities for business from Australia, which we're very excited about. We have a great roll up for this particular webinar. You can ask questions in the Q&A facility, which I think doubles as a chat room, but Aaron can describe that better than I can. And after Sabrin's made her presentation, Aaron will talk about our program that the Australia UAE Business Council is putting together for this period in the first week of December, which was very exciting. So this is the first delegation from Australia to the UAE this calendar year. We've already had delegation from the UAE to Australia earlier in the year, which went to Melbourne for both health and defence. And we are expecting a good roll-up of Australian businesses wanting to go to the UAE for this particular delegation, as well as all the people who are on the ground in the UAE who want to be part of it. One of the things that makes the Australia UAE Business Council different to others is that we try and have as many members in the Emirates as we do in Australia. That's why it's an equal number of people on our advisory board from the Emirates and from Australia, and why we have a co-chair, and we have Dahlia in the UAE, who works with Badr, who's our secretariat on that side of the Indian Ocean. So we've become very well organised, and I hope that those people who are on this particular webinar will want to come on the delegation, ask questions about it. And it's still relatively early days, but it will come around quickly. So we wanted to get the program explained earlier rather than later. So Aaron, with that, unless you want to explain any of the mechanics, I will hand over to Sabrin and ask her to make her presentation. You happy for that to happen, Aaron?
Thank you, Christopher. Yes, that'd be great. Thank you. I'll hand over to Sabrin.
Brilliant. Thank you both. Hi, everyone. My name is Sabrin Rahman. I'm the Director of Partnerships here at COP28. I'm actually on loan from HSBC, where I'm the Managing Director of Sustainable Finance and Sustainability for Europe and the Middle East. It's been a wild journey so far here at COP28 UAE. And I have been pleasantly surprised, let's put it that way, in terms of just the ambition and the vision of the UAE COP president designate, who himself is from the private sector, as many of you know, Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, whom I've known for many years, and at whose request I've joined the leadership team to help drive this forward. I mean, pleasantly surprised by the vision, but also the willingness to really bring different stakeholders to the table, right? We want to be an action-oriented COP. We want this COP to be a COP that really brings the global north and south together. But we also want this COP to leave a legacy that is really practical, that's scalable, and that is in many ways able to scale finance in ways that has never really been done before. So if we take a step back, many of us in the Northern Hemisphere have felt probably one of the hottest summers on record. And I'm based right now in the UAE. It's been hot, but it's not as dramatic as some of the temperatures we've seen across Europe and North America and parts of Asia as well. And we are seeing that it's not just the frequency, but it's also the impact, right, of severe weather patterns. And we obviously have seen that across Australia as well during with floods and bushfires and so forth. And I mean, this is the physical manifestation of climate change. But the reality is that we need to really start becoming, as a global community, just brutally honest about the gaps that need to be filled, but also what are the root causes as to how we've just gotten here. And so that's why we really, as a COP presidency, we really need to apply far-reaching, forward-looking, action-oriented, and comprehensive responses to address these gaps. And over the first 6 months of our term, we really undertook a listening tour around the world, understanding what are the real pain points across all sectors, across all economies. Because as many of you know, COPs have two distinct elements. One, which is the negotiated element, and that is the core of every COP. And then the non-negotiated track, right, which is where the real economy comes together, including the private sector and non-state actors. But really trying to understand for the party-driven process, what are the pain points? And we really based our strategy, which was announced in Brussels at the MOCA Ministerial about a month and a half ago, on 4 key pillars, which is fast-tracking the transition, the energy transition, really addressing climate finance, focusing on people, which is on lives and livelihoods, and underpinning everything we do around full inclusivity. So if I break that down a little bit, so if we talk about fast-tracking the transition, it's really about how can we ensure that we're laser focused on building the energy system of the future. And that is taking a really holistic approach that brings together both the supply and the demand side of an integrated response. If we look at really addressing climate finance, which is a critical imperative of climate action, it's really about how do we address the financial architecture that is really not making finance available for a lot of parts of the world, nor is it accessible nor affordable when we look at MDBs and so forth. And then when we look at lives and livelihoods, we know that vulnerable communities are the ones that feel the impact of the devastating sort of fallout of climate. We are one of the first COPs that will really put a huge focus on nature, food, health, and resilience. And this is an absolutely central part of our agenda, where we will continue to really ensure that there is a huge push on natural ecosystems, protecting vulnerable communities, and also ensuring that there's a flow of finance on practical solutions to save and improve lives. So I heard earlier that there was a delegation earlier on health as well. So we are one of the first COPs as well that will have a dedicated thematic day on the intersection of climate and health. So I would encourage you all to look at our draft 2-week agenda that is published on our website, and you will see that there are actually quite a few new innovations that we've introduced to really bring to the forefront some of these areas that we feel that the private sector also have a lot to add to this, including health, trade, accountability and transparency, early warning systems and resilience, and so forth, because all of the things that we are doing across COP actually has a private sector mobilization and integration element to it. Because what we want to do is ensure that we bring the innovation, the resourcing, the supply chain, the procurement, and the financing capabilities of the private sector to the table at all times, but in a very accountable way. I also wanted to touch upon the inclusion part. So for us, mobilization and inclusion is incredibly important. We are one of the first presidencies also to have a youth climate champion. The reason why that's important is many of us have seen that there's been a huge amount of distrust, mistrust amongst the younger generation of the climate process because they've never been an integrated part of policymaking. And so we've not only appointed a champion, we have young people as a part of negotiations processes from low income countries as well as small island nations who've been shadowing our negotiations for the whole year. And they will be, and we're also working on a program to institutionalize the role of the youth climate champion so it can be funded very much like a high level champion role for future COP presidencies. And we're working very, very closely with Youngo as well to establish this. And there are other elements of our inclusion pillar to ensure that the voice of Indigenous communities are also represented in negotiations and other programs going forward. We also will have a huge focus on technology. So throughout the 14 days of COP, the first 2 days will be the World Leaders Summit. But after that, you will have 10 days of programming that will focus on technology and innovation. There will be a dedicated technology and innovation conference, as well as there will be another thematic on trade as well for the first time ever. We're going to be inviting solutions, entrepreneurs from the global south. We'll be inviting VCs, investors, really trying to do matchmaking and curated, sort of facilitated deal making where possible. Because what we also are cognizant is that the flow of finance between the global north and south for startups is incredibly skewed. So essentially, what I'm trying to say is that as a COP presidency, we've heard where the pain points are. What we're trying to do is really curate this experience, this mega event, which is there is a huge focus, obviously, on the policy and the negotiations. But of the 80,000 people, 80 to 100,000 people that are anticipated to really visit our shores in Dubai, there is a huge element of getting some practical action. And that's what we're trying to curate through the delegations, through the pre-COP events, through all the regional climate weeks that are coming up across Asia, Africa, to really generate buzz, the deal making, the conversations, but also to be really practical so we can leave that legacy of collaboration and cooperation across borders, and to hand this blueprint of what COPs of the future should look like to future presidencies so that it is really practical, scalable, and actionable. So that's just a little sneak peek of how we're looking to approach our COP28. But it really does have a huge role for the private sector to play because we've seen in many instances, and I'm from the private sector, that in many circumstances, the private sector has moved the fastest on climate action. But also, we need to do it in a very credible, authentic, and transparent way. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Sabrin. I'm sure there'll be questions about COP28 and the engagement for business, the opportunities for business. My understanding is that COP28 is kind of split into 2 weeks. There's a sort of first week where most of the leaders are around, and the second week where there's more a business focus. Can you perhaps explain about that a bit? And secondly, the Global Manufacturing and Industry Summit, GMIS, which is happening in the second week, so the first week of December. Can you explain how that fits into COP28, if at all, or whether it's quite a separate program? Because the members of the Australia UAE Business Council will be interested in both COP28 and GMIS, which is why we're timing it for that second or that first week of December, when there'll be more time for people to actually talk about business rather than the leaders announcing agreements and things.
Sure. So day one, so COP begins on November 30th. Day one and December 1 and December 2 will be the World Climate Action Summit, which will have over 100 heads of states attending. And then kicks off the actual summit with the thematic days. Now, to be completely frank, Chris, we don't have any differentiation between business attendance and non-business attendance, right? In fact, over the next few weeks, you will see an announcement about a very large-scale business forum that's happening in the first week of COP. It's yet to be announced. And there will be private sector events happening across every day at COP. Now, in terms of the manufacturing event, it's not a part of the formal COP calendar, so it will be probably hosted offsite. But it will. There's probably hundreds of events happening on the sidelines, but not at the actual COP venue, which is at Expo 2020.
Yeah.
So, for example, within the COP venue, it's quite because of the security. It's quite stringent as to what is going to be held there. But what I would encourage all the members to do is to please keep an eye on our website. What we are doing is releasing incrementally, week by week, exactly what events and what agenda will be available. But I'm 100% sure that there is something available every day for private sector attendance and for private sector curation and sort of involvement as well.
And I assume that we would be flexible about that. So the Australia UAE Business Council kind of get an opportunity to take part in each of those days' business events, depending on numbers and availability and so forth and the rest of our program.
I think it depends on which zone it's in. So for those who've not attended COP before, there's two zones. So there's a blue zone, which is a diplomatic zone, and that requires individuals as well as entities to be registered under the UNFCCC and to be accredited. So if an event is being held in the blue zone, that requires a special badge.
Yeah.
And if the event is held in the green zone, which is then hosted by the host country, the UAE, that's a different badge, and that can be applied for on our website. So I would encourage you all, at the very least, to go onto our website, apply for the green zone badge. That will give you access to everything that's happening in the green zone, which will be a huge number of events as well.
Yeah, good. Is the GMIS not happening in the same place as COP28? But it's certainly in Dubai, but it mustn't be. It must be in a different venue.
It could be in a different venue, yes.
Yeah, there's certainly going to be a lot happening. We have 40 participants now, and so questions. Let's go to the Q&A. So, can you see that, Sabrin? In questions, the first question from Ryan Hillis. Or can only I see that?
I can.
Right.
Okay, set criteria to be eligible and considered for the delegation.
I think that first part of the question might be for us in terms of the delegation to the UAE with the Business Council.
Yeah, I can't answer that, sorry.
Yeah. So Ryan,
to be eligible. Aaron, do you want to answer that?
Yes. So for the delegation with the Business Council, it's open to anyone. So non-members are also welcome to attend. Obviously, we encourage all of the members of the Business Council to come with us, but anyone is welcome to attend the delegation, interested parties. The second part of that question is, can you explain the pathway, please, for all and any sub-pathways by other channels outside of COP? I presume that's in relation to the delegation.
Other suitable events. I think Sabrin answered that when she said if you have a green pass, which is open to anyone going to COP28 and hosted by the UAE government, then there'll be a zillion different events, and we would then kind of recommend which ones our delegation were going to go to, is I think probably the answer to that. And anybody on our delegation who had a green pass would be eligible to go. Is that right?
Look, yeah. So if you do have a green pass, you can get into the green zone, not a problem. That shouldn't be an issue at all.
Yeah.
And I think from a visa perspective, if you do have an Australian passport, it's visa on entry, so it should be very, very easy.
Yeah. Well, most of our members will be business people, so they won't be spending time in the blue zone won't be of that much interest to them, I wouldn't have thought. But we'll find out more about that as time goes by, I guess. People putting their hands up. Sharifi, you've got your hand up. Did you want to ask a question? How does he do that, Aaron? Oh, here we are. You got letting him in. How exciting. I'm not very good at things like this, you might have discovered.
I think there's a question from Adam as well. So Adam, what do you mean by delineation between the blue and the green? Do you mean a physical delineation? Or is that the physical delineation? If it is the physical delineation, yes, all of our blueprints are ready to go, and the build has already begun. So we've got 100 days to go as of today. So everything is very much set. And the blue zone and the green zone are right next to each other. So it's not as it was, for example, in COP27, which there was quite a bit of distance, if that helps. So I think the blue and the green zone will be within walking distance. So the distance will be less than probably 150 meters of each other, but there will be strict security protocols between both.
Yeah, and I suppose if it's at the expo site, it won't be hard to get there, and it's very vast. So that's where everybody will be most of the time, won't they?
Yeah.
Okay, what happened to Sharif?
He said it was an accident or mistake, so he raised the hand. But thank you anyway. Hello.
Any other questions? Or people want to put their hand up?
Sabrin, I was actually curious about what sort of events would be taking place as part of the program for business leaders who are attending COP28 as part of the green zone.
Oh, there's going to be probably, oh gosh. So every day, so for business leaders, I can't tell you too much because we're going to be unveiling it slowly. So as I said, on the first 2 days, there's going to be a huge forum that's going to be launched, but that will be by invite only. There'll be different awards on the third day for SMEs. So there'll be a few SME forums that'll be held because we want to also include all sizes of the private sector. It's not just about the big multinationals. And then on December 4th, there'll be quite a few forums and discussions on trade, because that will be Trade Day, as well as there'll be business forums on accountability, transparency, and disclosures on December 4th. There'll be quite a bit of focus on green capital markets as well on December 4th. And then on December 5th, there'll be a focus on energy. So the sort of business forums will look at procurement and hydrogen procurement, as well as decarbonization and PPA. And then we will move to procurement actions and supply chain actions that can be taken by the private sector around nature positive commitments, as well as water commitments, right? How the private sector can really take and contribute towards that. And then around December 9th and 10th, it's really around food landscapes and desalination as well. So there'll be quite a few events on that.
Fantastic, thank you. So December 5 will actually be the day that we're planning to attend COP as part of our delegation. So that works out quite well for us. We had another question here from Ahmed. Is the blue zone of interest to businesses that's watching climate policy closely, or is it more of a certain type of official?
The blue zone can be very interesting. It depends on, look, at the end of the day, the blue zone is composed of country pavilions, as well as international NGO pavilions and accredited UN observers. So that's essentially the sort of presence, and they curate different sort of events and panels. So it has a different flavor to it. So I've attended, so the last few COPs I've been to representing HSBC, I found it equally interesting, right? To attend blue zone and green zone events. But then again, I represented a large multinational and I worked in a policy space of a large multinational, right? So it really depends on the type of role you do and the type of organization you represent. That being said, the type of programming we're trying to curate as COP28 is really to have as little difference as possible between the two zones, because we're very cognizant that not everyone can access the blue zone because of the difficulty in being accredited by the UN. So even if you're unable to get that access, you will have access to that level of policy content in the green zone. So I think hopefully you'll still get that level of access through the green zone, because if you were to try to get that blue zone access now, it'd be incredibly difficult. Unless you were to somehow go through the official Australia delegation, which through the Australian government, which would be incredibly challenging at this point. But I'm fairly confident that through the green zone, you would still be able to get that policy access at this point.
Thank you. We might move on to Aaron, talking a bit about the actual program for our delegation, because I think a lot of our participants would like to know about that. So Aaron, we'll hand over to you. And if people think of questions to Sabrin between now and the end, we can always go back to her towards the end.
So sorry, Chris, I have to drop off. I've got another meeting, but I'm happy to take any questions later. Aaron, you can email me and either me or my team can get back.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Sabrin.
No problem.
Very insightful.
December.
Take care. See you then.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
So, Aaron, you would like to talk about the program, and then we might do some questions about that. Oh, there we go.
Yes. Okay, so I think everyone should be able to see my screen okay. How's it look for you, Christopher? Good, fantastic. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. It was great to hear from Sabrin about COP28 and the connection with the private sector. And I'd like to take this opportunity to discuss the delegation that we have planned for December. As Christopher has mentioned, we'll be leading the delegation to the UAE to attend COP28 and the Global Manufacturing and Industrialisation Summit, or GMIS for short. It's a bit of a mouthful. So our first a bit of an overview about the Business Council. It was established in 2020. We are primarily a business-to-business and business-to-government focused business council. Our main goal is to connect our members with Australian and Emirati officials and business leaders to create those opportunities for business collaboration in search of pipeline opportunities and stronger connections. I'd like to take this moment as well to acknowledge our foundation members, ADCO, Aspen Medical, EOS, Etihad Airways, Omnes, Pine & Partners, KBR, Mubadala, and Queensland Investment Company. So the delegation to the UAE will be the second delegation we've taken to the UAE. The first was for Expo 2020. The delegation is an opportunity for the Business Council to take business leaders to the UAE to build connections, to expand their networks, to develop those pipeline opportunities for business, and to gain experience through first-hand knowledge. The Business Council delegation to the UAE will focus on the themes of COP28 and the UAE, with a strong focus on emerging industries and cutting-edge advancements in technology and manufacturing, with a specific focus on sustainability and decarbonization. So the delegation commences on the 4th of December, on a Monday, and it will go for 4 days, finishing on the evening of the 7th of December. The locations for the delegation will commence and end in Dubai. So if you're booking flights, that's something to consider. The delegation's itinerary, as an overview, will feature 2 days at Expo City, the first for COP28 and the second for GMIS 2023. On the Monday and the Thursday, either side of the 2 days at Expo City, will have a program that includes site visits, briefings with leaders, and meetings with the stakeholders. The delegation will also include networking opportunities for attendees and delegates to meet with each other, as well as other stakeholders who are interested in what we're doing. There'll be the Australia UAE GMIS dinner, which is sponsored kindly by the New South Wales government. We have a delegation welcome reception, as well as a COP28 dinner and a farewell reception. Now, there are a number of companies and agencies that we will be meeting with while we're over there. We've put together a proposed list of site visits and briefings for members that we would like to, for companies that we would like to meet with. The first being Mubadala, which is a sovereign investment company from the UAE government, fostering economic diversification and sustainable growth in the UAE. Mazda is a leading renewable energy and sustainable technology company, which drives innovation in clean energy solutions for the UAE. They actually have a partnership with an Australian firm called Tribe Infrastructure, which is a member of the Australia UAE Business Council. Austrade, which I think many of you might be familiar with, but Austrade is the Trade and Investment Commission for Australia, and they facilitate the international trade and investment opportunities. Hub 71 is a tech ecosystem initiative in Abu Dhabi, which supports startups and tech innovation. Injazat is a leading ICT service provider in the UAE, which contributes to digital transformation and cybersecurity solutions. BR, which is one I'm very excited for personally, is a pioneering environmental management company which champions sustainability and waste management in the UAE. They have a number of exciting projects, which I think will be quite interesting given the scope of the delegation. The Sharjah FDI office is a government entity in Sharjah, which is the city neighboring to Dubai. And it's a government entity that provides foreign and direct investment and economic development in the city and the emirate of Sharjah. The New South Wales government, close friends, we have Investment New South Wales on our as a member of the Business Council. So we're hoping to have some close involvement with them. They are kindly sponsoring our GMIS dinner, as I mentioned earlier. The Abu Dhabi Investment Office, one of our advisory board members, Jamie Levy, is senior advisor. They are very important in attracting investment and fostering the business growth in Abu Dhabi. And similarly is the Investment Corporation of Dubai for Dubai. The University of Wollongong Dubai is a close partner for this delegation as well, and we're very happy to be working with them. Strata Manufacturing and Sanad Airspace are both underlined by the UAE, the Abu Dhabi government, so they'll be very important in terms of the manufacturing side of things, and they've got some very innovative solutions. And the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Solar Park is a landmark solar energy project contributing to the UAE's renewable energy goals. So they're the kind of, I guess, side meetings and site visits that we'd like to have on the delegation, in addition to the 2 days Expo City for COP28 and GMIS. So the first day of the delegation will look somewhat like this, with site visits and briefings in Dubai, followed by lunch, and then we'll go to Sharjah, which is the neighboring city to Dubai, the neighboring emirate to Dubai, where we'll have some more site visits and briefings, followed by a welcome dinner at Cipriani, Dubai, which is a very lovely restaurant in Dubai. So we're looking forward to that one. On the Tuesday will be our COP28 day. So we're attending the day that is specifically focusing on energy, industry, and just transition. So that day that day will include briefings, site visits. As Sabrin touched on earlier, there will be some very exciting opportunities for business leaders to participate in. And that will include lunch and dinner at Expo City before returning back to the hotel. The second day at Expo City for GMIS will be somewhat similar to the first. It's except with a focus on the Global Manufacturing and Industrialisation Summit. Our co-chair from the UAE, His Excellency Badr Al Olama, is actually the head of the organising committee for GMIS, which presents a great opportunity for us to be involved, and I think that'll be very exciting. GMIS is a very important summit each year, so it'd be very great for us to be involved in that, and we're working with some of the partners to have a very solid lineup on the day of the visit to GMIS. The final day of the delegation will be a bit of a road trip around the UAE. We are going to Al Ain to look at the manufacturing facility there, followed by a trip to Abu Dhabi, where we'll have site visits and briefings there. And then we'll have our farewell reception at the end of the trip, which will round it out nicely, and an opportunity to say goodbye and reflect on the 4 days of the delegation. Included in the delegation is the participation in site visits, meetings, and events, and this will also include the passes to Expo City for COP28 and GMIS. So we'll organise that for you. The meals on the delegation, so lunches and dinners, and ground transfers to all of the meeting site visits at specified times. It's organised by the council, and this will include either a coach transfer or private transfer for those longer journeys. Now, the delegation registration fee for non-members, it is 5,500. For silver and gold members of the Business Council, they have 30% off, and that is 3,850. And for our foundation members to receive a 50% discount on our registration fee, 2,750. I might note that the airfares and accommodation aren't included in the delegation registration fee, so they'll be sorted at your own arrangements. However, as a foundation member of the Business Council, I can recommend and would urge you to look at flights with Etihad Airways. The council has also arranged for a group booking at the Doubletree by Hilton and M Square in Dubai. So we have a block of rooms that we've arranged for at a reduced price for delegates of the delegation. If you're interested, please let us know, and we can let you know the details for those as well. If you're looking to register or sign up, I encourage you to go to our website, ausuaebc.com/delegation. There's a registration form there that you can fill out with all your details. It'd be really great to hear from you as well. If you want to get in touch, please email us at events@ausuaebc.com. If you have any questions as well, please feel free to put them through the group chat or through the Q&A. We'd love to hear from you. But that's essentially the delegation overview, a bit of information about what we're planning, and I really hope that I'll see you all there.
Right, Aaron, that's very comprehensive. Thank you. And questions? We got any other questions to Aaron about the program? In the Q&A or the group chat, or I suppose people can put their hands up. Is that right, Aaron?
You can put your hands up and I can use that to unmute you if you like.
Any questions?
I think perhaps that was too comprehensive. There's no room for questions.
No, and you've sent that we'll send that program out to all the attendees, Aaron, and anyone who expresses any interest, of course.
Absolutely. I'll send through the that presentation deck to the attendees of the call. So if you have any questions as well, feel free to email us back and we can let you know more about it. I would suggest as well, if you're interested, to register sooner rather than later, just given that the topic of the delegation has garnered a lot of interest. So we have any limited spaces available on the delegation. So yeah, better not to wait too much on this one.
Okay, no questions? If not, I think we might wrap it up. Are you happy to do that, Aaron?
I think so. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oops, Mark Tipping. I've answered his questions already. Great. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And also thank you to our advisory board member, Alicia Saffron from May Saffron. It's great to have you here as well. And thank you to all of our members who've also joined the call today, and to everyone else. And we look forward to hearing from you soon.